Saludos, saludos, mi gente. Welcome back to the Latino Dad Connection podcast. My name is Efrain Reyes. Thank you so much for joining us in this very special podcast. I have the pleasure and the privilege to really dive deep into the conversation with one of my dearest mentors as I started this journey, learning more about what men's work is and how to support men through healing, through transformation. I was able to get connected with Vince Chafin, aka Uncle Motoska. I was connected with him through a organization called Sacred Sons, where he is also supporting, leading. But this brother, this uncle, has been doing men's work for a long time, has a lot of great tools, and he's going to be holding a very special training upcoming in May. And we're going to be talking a little bit about this training in the podcast and what to expect and how to get connected with his teachings. So really, really excited about this podcast. Also, I want to share with you that we are also having a men's weekend, Guerreros Rising, at the end of this month, April 25th, 26th, and 27th, out in Lucerne Valley. This is a space for us as guerreros to rise together, to transform, to let go of anything that is holding us back, and really step into our full essence. So, if you'd like to learn more about our offering, please make sure to visit our website at latino.connection.com where you see all the details. Well, without further ado, let's get started with our episode with Vince Chafin. All right, welcome, Uncle Vince Chafin. Thank you so much for joining us in the Latino Connection podcast. Super happy to be here with you. I'm excited to have you in this podcast. Yeah, I've actually had intentions on calling you into this podcast, and it just worked out, to be here. I see you as one of my mentors, one of my maestros, when it comes to men's work, when it comes to life. Um, so I'm excited for you to share a little bit about your story and your wisdom with us here. Before we go into any questions, I always like to give my guests that are here in the podcast to give a little background, a little what we call conocimiento. Just getting to know each other. For people that might not know you, who is Vince Chafin? If you can share a
Mm,
little bit about yourself and anything that you'd like to share with the audience.
sure. Well, thank you so much, Efrain. I appreciate that so much. And thank you again for the invitation to be here. I really appreciate it. Well, I'm a father, I'm a
Mm,
grandfather.
mm,
Um, I've been involved in what might be known as the mythopoetic men's movement for some time. It has evolved over the years. And I've been a musician and a rancher and a worker in about a million different ways. And somehow my life has evolved into being hopefully useful to more than just myself. And that's what I try to focus my life on is a life of service and a life of mission and a life of purpose. And it's the last 20 years has been an extraordinary blessing. I get to travel the world and to help people. And
yeah.
within doing helping others, I continue to help myself heal and grow. And it's been an extraordinary blessing to have a relationship with organizations like the Mankind Project and Sacred Sons and Desert Wisdom and others. And I consider myself an extraordinary lucky man. I'm a very blessed man. And I try to extend those blessings as far as I can every day.
Yeah. I see that and I feel that, Uncle, and I appreciate your service. Sounds, you're a man that wears many hats, just like many of us, and also very passionate about supporting others. Supporting a new community, supporting, you know, young men, young women that are trying to grow. I met you through Sacred Sons, 3 years ago, almost, I think, in EMX, what is called the Embodied Masculine Experience out in San Diego.
Mm.
And was very, very impressed with just your presence, your
Hmm.
level of support, your level of just wisdom, and something drew me to you in that weekend. And another part that drew me to you and your story, and we were there in Jacumba, San Diego, right next to the border, right next to where many people cross, that border, that man-made border, and you acknowledge that. You took some time to acknowledge that, right? Saying, I remember the exact words, but just allowing that to be the acknowledgement that many people have crossed through these lands, and some of them have lost their lives.
Hmm.
And I really appreciated that. I really appreciate that, that you are aware of the story, not just your story, but other people's stories, and you're very aware of that.
Hmm.
And I'm like, okay, I can invite this gringo to the carne asada. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So thank you so much for being who you are and caring so much about people, really, So thank you, Vince. And I would love to jump into what inspired you to come into men's work, and how has that supported your
Hmm.
journey?
Hmm. Well, let me let me back up just a little bit and touch on something you said, if you don't mind, if that would.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's jump in it.
Okay. Um, I think it addresses the question you just asked in a way. It's kind of helped me become who I am and define who I am over time, I suppose.
Mm,
When we were on top of that mountain, looking out, of course, at that border
yeah.
and looking at that beautiful countryside, you know, depending on which books you read and which philosophies you want to choose or which religions you take in, humans have been coming and going on this planet for a long time,
Right.
crossing a lot of country for a long time. I can walk out behind my property and go up just a little bit and take you to some grind holes that are in some rocks there that, gosh knows how many hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, maybe even thousands of years those grind holes are.
Mm,
Um, Living how I live and being raised how I was raised, somewhat in and yet somewhat separate from, for lack of a better term, the matrix,
yeah.
I think gives me, thankfully, a slightly different perspective on life, daily life, and how most people live it. And having been in it, having had corporate jobs out of that world in many different forms, has informed, I suppose, who I am and how I walk on the earth. And having the father that I had, both
Mm,
good and bad, and blessing and not blessing, and yet everything in the end becomes a blessing. All of that has led me to try to, if at all possible, in my best days, move beyond the focus of myself and my own selfish needs, wants, and desires, and
mm,
try to help the world, help make the world just a little bit better place. Try to help others ease their suffering. Once I finally came to terms and got a new reframe on my story and was able to restory that story and look back on it a different way, um, it helped me begin to help others do the same for themselves. So after years and years of therapy, family constellation work, all kinds of different modalities, eventually certain men started to show up in my life and they were different. They walked different, they talked different, they moved through the world in a different way. And I didn't know who any of them were. I mean, I knew their names, but I didn't know who they were. But I knew they possessed something that I wanted.
yeah.
And eventually came to find out all those men did this crazy thing that's known as the weekend,
The weekend.
which turns out to have been the new warrior training adventure from the Mankind Project. So through a very dear friend of mine, it got me in, and I went and did the weekend. And that was the first time I was in what we would call a container, a group, a collective of men who didn't want anything from me.
Mm.
They wanted nothing but love for me, and they wanted to help me be better. And they weren't trying to hurt me. They weren't trying to intimidate me.
Right.
They were trying to love on me. And it was through their actions and their behaviors, and it was through who they were, not what they said, but who and how they were that inspired me to dive in and go deeper. And once I started getting involved, I intuitively knew deep down in my heart that this was a pathway for me. At least it was something that was pulling me forward. And so I
Mm.
dove in pretty headfirst. I
Mm.
drank the Kool-Aid, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah, I did too. Thank you for, just backing up a little bit and talking about that. Something that you mentioned really caught my attention, which was the way that we see the world, right? In the different perspective and the way that we were raised. You mentioned, kind of being in the matrix, out of the matrix,
Mhm.
and the parents that you had and wearing all these hats. And I think that's one of the things that men's work has helped me like create is another perspective, right? Because when I go to these weekends, specifically, with Sacred Sons, um, I connect with so many men that I may not have connected if I was just out in the world, right?
Yeah.
Because maybe I'm judging, or there's judgments that I have towards the other man, and that perspective also of shifting from, hey, I'm in a space where I can actually feel safe
Mhm.
around other men, that they don't want anything from me. They are just loving on me and they
Mhm.
want me to generally do better. And that
Yes.
was a big shift of perspective for me. Usually I had to, watch my back,
Mhm.
um, see who I was around. And I still do that, but I know that there's good men out there that are just ready to lift me up when I need them, when I need them, right?
Yeah.
And you've been involved in this work, for quite a few years. I'm sure you have seen it shift as well, from where you started and now, now with
Yes.
Sacred Sons and many other movements popping up, right?
Yes.
Why is this work so important? I mean, this work has always been important, right? Like this work is always important, but like, why now? Like, why? What's happening now in our world that you feel like men's work is the really key to shifting some of the core issues that our world is going through?
Yeah. I think I think what we're doing is uh, an inoculation to a symptom.
Okay.
The symptom is over time, for various reasons, lots of reasons, families have been intentionally and unintentionally pulled apart.
Yep.
Men have been pulled and or pushed from the home,
Mm-hmm.
leaving a vacuum of solid masculinity in the home. Children have been left to be raised by just their mothers. The family's been pulled apart further and further, so there isn't a grandmother or an aunt or the grandparents or the great grandparents somewhere close by, so that there's a continuity and a connection of love and history brought into and through the culture of that family and that community, because those elders aren't around, the elders aren't there.
Yeah.
So we have parents broken apart. We have elders who aren't connected. We ship them off and we put them in old folks' homes. Um, we so these children are being raised mostly by mothers, mostly by single mothers, and without, regardless whether the child is a boy or a girl, we all possess both masculine and feminine temperaments within ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
and that flows throughout our lives. Without a strong masculine presence, and every study shows this, children do better when there's a man in the home. There's less, they do better in school, they do better emotionally, they're less depressed, they do better on every possible matrix when there's a man in the home. Now, ideally, it's the father. Sometimes it definitely goes down with stepfathers and second and third and fourth stepfathers, if you will. But ideally, if the father is in the home, children do better, and so does the mother. So that's a little bit of a backstory to slowly get us to where we are. The original mythopoetic men's movement was born out of an idea from three men, mostly Bill Kouth, who was married. He himself was a therapist, and he was married to a therapist. And he was noticing that his wife had all these symposiums and was able to go to all these different women's gatherings. And there were women's circles, and there was all kinds of support for women and mothers. And there wasn't a single thing for men, not one. Not unless were a part of a Moose Lodge or an Elks Lodge, or you were in the military
Mm.
uh, on a basketball team. There was no really emotional masculine support.
Right.
So he and two of his friends, a military man and a businessman, put together the initial uh, New Warrior Weekend.
Okay.
And that was 40 years ago. And from that, they pulled in different teachings. And one of the teachings was the idea that young men need to be initiated,
Mm.
that men don't just naturally grow up. And we see this all over. This is, if there is such a thing known as toxic masculinity, this is, I think, what the feminine is pointing to, is to men who never grow up. They stay Peter Pan forever. All you
Mm.
have to do is watch the Peter Pan cartoon, the movie, and you can see the archetype of the uninitiated male. Peter Pan wants to stay little forever. He wants to go to the island with the Lost Boys and be king of the Lost Boys. And
Mm.
his only real love, the love that he wants, is Tinkerbell, a fictional character, which we can deviate a little bit at some point in time to online porn, where so many men are pulled away from, in touched by this ethereal thing that doesn't exist, rather
Mm.
than staying with Wendy, who's a real girl and is wanting Peter Pan to grow up.
Mm.
So we have multiple generations of young men, fatherless young men, raised by women, and it's never a woman's job to initiate a boy, ever. It's the tribe's job, it's the community's job to initiate the boys.
Yeah.
Women get initiated when their menstrual cycle comes on. Men don't have that. And so when they started to create this weekend, they said, hey, look, we know generationally, we go back thousands and thousands of years. In every culture on the earth, the men had to come in and get the boys and take them away from the comfortable bosom of the mother and take them out and initiate them into the world of men,
Mm.
because it's a different world. It's a different life with different expectations. Our world is not the same world as women's. And so they started that weekend, and it started growing, and now it's a global organization. And going on 7 years ago, and multiple organizations have popped out of that. You got 7 years ago, Sacred Sons birthed itself, and
Mm-hmm.
it, while not directly associated with MKP, certainly has borrowed a lot and is standing on the shoulders of many of these great men who knew that young men needed to be shown what it's like to be a man. They needed
Mm.
to be trained. They needed to
Yeah.
be taught. That's what our Father's job, part of our Father's job is to do that. His job is to teach us. It's the uncles all of our uncles and our grandfathers were, and the other men of our community, it was their responsibility to come get us and take us out and put us through the trials and tribulations necessary to make us take those first steps in becoming a man.
Yeah.
Father could and never would do that. Why? Because he would never push us hard enough, usually.
Right.
He would never push us just over the edge where we could, because, of course, he loves us. He doesn't want to hurt us. But the other men of the community's job was to do that. With that vacuum over the last 40, 50, 60, 70 years, we now see, thank goodness, the growth of more and more and more organizations, men, young men going, I know there's something missing. I don't really know what it is. But I know that when we do these particular things, this feels good. And it
Yeah.
feels like I have some purpose and I have some mission. And it feels like whatever this is, it feels right, whatever that is. So let's go do this thing. And even though they don't have fathers or elders with them going, hey, 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 here's the way, they're creating it for themselves, thank God.
Right.
And that's why I think you can look now. And the other thing that happened around that time, of course, was the birth of social media.
Yeah.
And now you can see that in the early 20, 30, even 30 years of this, men's initiations were always done in quiet, in secret, at night, away. It was never talked about. And that idea held fast and continues to hold fast, certainly over there at the Mankind Project and other men's organizations. What Sacred Sons and you're seeing more and more doing is they don't have that story. In fact, most of them don't even know that story, in fact.
Right.
All they know is, we're doing this thing. We want more people to come. So we're going to take pictures and put it out there and say, and normalize the fact that men cry, scream, yell, that men have an emotional and natural emotional vocabulary and emotional experience. We are human beings after all.
Right.
We're going to put it out there in the world and invite men to come. That didn't exist before. So several things are contributing to what now, my gosh, if you go on, there are many people over the world putting on men's retreats and men workshops and men's organizations. And I think it's really good and it's really positive. It's really needed.
Yeah.
And I'm excited about that. And now we have the tools to tell people, i.e., through social media, hey, come to the fire. Like, we got a place for you.
Yeah.
And we're going to love on you. We're going to challenge you. We're going to push you to be better because you can be better. And we're going to support you along your journey. There's people here who want to be connected to you. There is a brotherhood here.
Right.
And it's not a culty brotherhood. It's a brotherhood of mutual support and mutual love and mutual admiration. And this collective
Is that your cat?
cat, one of my many cats, while we're talking here.
You want some
Yeah,
attention?
he does. He wants some attention.
That's
Um,
funny.
there's there's a longing. Men have such a longing that women cannot fill.
Let,
In
let,
fact, it's not
let,
even a job to fill.
let me pause you there because you said a lot of great things, and then we'll go into that longing and what men are yearning to get, and what are some of the challenges that men go through right now. But I love a lot of things that you said. One of the things, just to kind of summarize it, is like the family unit has been fragmented, right, for many reasons, and different cultures, I think, also deal with different things. In my culture, Latino culture, we're big on family,
Hmm?
but we're also, torn apart with many things, specifically, immigration. Sometimes, families getting deported, family members, or just things like that that don't allow for that family to stay together.
Mm,
And you mentioned the importance of men being at home and being their presence at home, right? And how
mhm,
has that has been taken away from the home, and how children do better when men are present, when fathers are present. And I do a lot of work with men, with fathers, and telling them about the importance that they have in their children's lives. Giving some statistics and how children do better in all these ways when they're involved. First of all, I think sometimes men don't understand the impact that they have in their families. They just think that their main job is to work hard, protect, provide, which is, yes, part of that, but there's a lot more of that. And the other part, I think, is as a society, we don't understand the importance of fathers in children's lives, or we think we understand, but we don't put the effort to like make changes. And one of the things that I'm doing is I'm working with schools to educate them on that, to educate them on the importance of having men and fathers be part of the community, be part of the culture, be part of the overall education of their children. And one of the stats that I share with the schools is like 1 out of 10 teachers in elementary school is a male. The other nine are females, and our children are spending so much time in school with mostly, female teachers, which is great, but they also need to see the other side, right? What is a healthy masculinity look like? So, yeah, you just said a lot that like really inspired me to share that. Is there anything that you want to share about what I just shared?
Hmm. Yeah, there's benefits and costs for children growing up in a predominantly feminine, being raised by women everywhere they go.
Okay.
And of course there are. How can there not be? We all have our psychopathologies, men and women. And that dearth, that absence, because of course men are expected to go out and work. We're not expected to spend all day at home with the children.
Right.
And men typically can't make enough money. They can't enter the school system. Number one, for the most part, they're not welcome. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and for the second part, they're never going to make enough money to support their family if they do enter the educational system, except at the collegiate level. And then that is also dominated mostly by women. Now, what can happen if you understand psychology in any way, shape, or form is over time, the underlying pain, hurt, and overprotective nature of the feminine, whether it's in the masculine or the feminine body, doesn't make any difference. But the feminine energy, if you will, feminine temperament,
Mm-hmm.
of course, lead toward compassion and empathy. Duh, of
Yeah.
course. Their job is to raise children and to keep children safe. The trouble is when that gets projected onto adult people who are in male bodies who are now 15, 17, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, and that way of being continues to get projected on and used against adults who don't need that, who don't need
Right.
that part. And you've got not while all that was going on that I talked about before about the pushing men out of the home for various under various guises, at the same time, women have been told over and over, you don't need children. All you need is a job. All you
Mm.
need is a career.
Mm-hmm.
And so now we have this perfect storm, especially at the collegiate level, where mostly motherless children are trying to get unconsciously their needs met by a psychopathic overextension of their compassion and empathy. And It's leading to a lot of problems that we have today. I know I'll get in a lot of trouble for saying these things because we can't speak some of these things out loud.
Right.
Women have been hurt as much by the feminist movement as men have,
Mm.
and we've both been sold a lie that the other is the enemy, and we're not in any way, shape, or form. Bill Kauth, one of the founders of the Mankind Project, at one point in time wrote a book called "We Need Each Other." And wow, yeah, duh, we need each other.
Yeah.
Okay, the
So
masculine
simple.
skills. It's very simple. It's a simple system. Been going on for thousands and thousands of years. It's not really that difficult to
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah.
Our sisters and our mothers and our aunties and our grandmothers, the feminine provides specific and beautiful things in this human tapestry. The masculine provides beauty and strength and provision and safety and protection and play and creativity in this beautiful human tapestry. And multiple things have been done and to pull us further and further apart, to pull that tapestry, to pull the threads apart of this great human weaving. And I believe social media then just turns that up to 11. So
Mm.
you only see those algorithms only play back to you the things you click on and the things you like. So if you're of a particular mind frame, that's all you're going to see, which then creates a world in your head that that's the way the world is. When in fact, it's not the way the world is.
Mm.
Was never meant to be that way. It currently is that way, and that's
Yeah.
the world that you're helping people navigate beautifully. It's the world I'm trying to help people navigate, going, okay, instead of saying, oh, it shouldn't be this way, whether that's true or not, it's not helpful when I look at it that way. What's helpful is this is where we are, as that wonderful, I think it was a Taoist saying, is may you be born in interesting times. We're
Mm.
born in interesting times. So let's take advantage of the fact that we're born here now in these challenging and interesting times and actually do something with it and about it, not just complain about it. So part of this beautiful immersion, if you will, of beautiful men's work, and then of course, you know about, Sacred Sons, myself and Adam and others have been pushing, and we finally did it last year to do events bringing the masculine and the feminine together.
Yeah.
It's wonderful to do men's work, and it's wonderful for women to be out doing their own work. By the way, I'll do a little plug now for Allison Armstrong. For all of you out there, men and women, but especially the women, if you don't know her work, again, Allison Armstrong, I highly recommend it. For those of you who want to just get your toes wet, she has multiple things on Audible. I believe she knows more about the masculine feminine dance than anybody
Yeah.
and has made a profound difference in my life and my fiance's life. Um, I think our job now should always be how can I help? Where can I be of service? How can I show up to make things a little bit better? I can't undo what's been done or where we are, but I can shift whatever story I make up about what's happened to me or the world or to anything, whatever that is, because I don't think continuing to tell the same sad ass old story about what this happened to me and this happened to them and this happened to them helps anybody. All that does is perpetuate it and make it worse.
Right.
What can I do right here, right now? Like you going, hey, I want to help Latino men and fathers and families. I want to help them
Yeah.
the best way that I can. Doesn't matter what happened, but what can we do right here, right now,
How
and
can
tomorrow
we move forward?
week? How can we move forward? Right? Like
Yeah.
how can we fix it, or at
Yeah.
least make it better?
Make it a little bit better. Yeah.
That's my right now. We're surrounded by people. If you look for it out there, you will hear nothing but they did that and they did that and This happened to these people, and it's constant propaganda to pull us apart.
Mm-hmm.
And part of my life is about everything that I can do to get us back together face to face, reminding ourselves we're not the enemy.
Yeah.
We are here to make the world better. And what can we do in relationship to help others? How can we show up for others?
Mm-hmm.
If we all have that mindset, if we all shift to a service mindset of how we can show up, how can I support you? The utopian society that some people desperately want to create, we can get way closer to it if we take on the responsibility and carry the burden, our own burdens and the burdens of others to show up.
Mm-hmm.
But if we keep going, oh, it should be this and it should be that, and stay in victim mode and continue to blame everybody but ourselves, nothing's going to change. We're not
Yeah.
going to. That is the Peter Pan syndrome. That
Right.
is men staying little men, uninitiated, not showing up, constantly narcissistic consumed for what they want, what they need. And then that other side of that coin now is OnlyFans, right? Women going, oh, look, I can make $1 million a month, maybe $1 million a week because
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty and I'm young. And why wouldn't I do that?
Yeah.
I'm trashing my future. I'll never have a relationship. Most likely, I'll never have kids. And God forbid if they ever do have kids and realize what mommy did or does for,
Mm.
like, that's the other side of that. Well, I'll just stay young and pretty forever.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna cash in on this thing because, well, I deserve to. Not thinking about the spiritual, the moral, oh my God, the devastation that that's going to cause them and what it's doing to our society and hooking so many men into plugging them into this painful circle of narcissistic self gratification.
Mm.
Not good. Not
Whew.
good.
Wow. Thank you. Wow. Gotta take a deep breath. I love that. I love that. One of the things that I really appreciate about you, Uncle, is your dedication to service, dedication to actually doing something to solve the problem, not staying in the problem, not, let's do something. And it can be something small, it can be something big, but I think that is part of the healthy masculine, to see something and do something about it, right? I may not have all the answers, but
Mhm,
I can help out just a little bit, just
mhm.
a little bit. And also that other idea of like, we need each other. We need
Yes.
each other. Men and women, the masculine, the feminine needs each other, but other men need each other, right?
Mhm.
And everything that is also uh, pulling us apart, like you were mentioning, is like, how can we oversee that and really see each other for who we are, right? And I think that that's why men's work is so beautiful because it helps us to go past our judgment, go past of what we think, in our perspective. And that's how I think that that's part of the key to some of the issues that our society is facing today.
Mhm.
But what do you think are some other challenges that men, might be going through when it comes to emotional awareness,
Hmm.
comes to like actually being of service and bringing each other rather than tearing each other apart? What are some of the challenges that men face today?
Well, I don't think that it's any different than, well, it is different. There are more things certainly pulling at us than 100 years ago or two or three or 400 years ago.
Right.
Um, oh, thank God I don't have it sitting next to me. I was going to grab my phone and show you my phone.
Okay.
That for sure is definitely pulling us away from reality, let alone
That's true.
pulling us from each other. It pulls us into some strange black hole of intellectual and spiritual capture
Mm,
that is very difficult and designed to be very difficult for us to walk away from.
mm, yeah.
Um, you know, life can be hard, man. Life can be hard. And sometimes it's supposed to be hard. We're supposed to be tested. And it can be overwhelming. And if you're getting hit on every direction, men have been told, especially young men, the last two or three generations of men have been told they're the problem, they're what's wrong with the world,
Mm,
that them just by the mere fact of them being born with masculine genitalia makes them toxic. That the idea of masculinity is bad and wrong and should be corrected.
mm,
Well, you get multiple generations of men told they're the problem. If you're remotely conscientious at all, if you have any heart and any level of compassion as a man at all, you're going to pause and you're going to consider that and you're going to go, am I the problem? Am
mm,
I what's wrong with the world? And if you're getting fed a steady diet of men have wrecked the world, men have men are the controllers of the universe, men are what's enslaved humans since the beginning of time. And no matter where they turn, either in their home or in their school, they get reminded and reprimanded for being just a man.
mm,
Well, of course, they're going to turn to drugs, porn, alcohol, sports, anything to numb the pain and to forget and to walk away from anything that causes that level of suffering.
mm,
And if a woman, from the time that she's been on the earth, has been told the whole time, men are the problem, men are what your problem is. And then unfortunately, they choose a man or two, unfortunately, sometimes in a row, that hurt them mentally, physically, emotionally. We've all been hurt. We can all do something with that, either positive or negative. We have all had our hearts broken.
right.
But if you're a woman and have had your heart broken two or three times by men, it's pretty easy to then create the narrative men are the problem. Now, you have that going on. You have men demoralized, isolated, and numbing themselves. You have women doing the exact same thing and then pointing their finger at men, going, you're wrong, you're bad. Well, guess what happens, of course, then when they find a man finally and they fall in love and they create a child or two or three. And then, of course, he becomes the thing that she always knew he was, which is a bad man, and she runs him off. And unfortunately, maybe she has one or two or three sons. What is she going to do with those sons?
Mm,
You're bad. You're wrong. You're just like your father.
you're just like your father. Wow.
All right. So it starts it starts right there at the core, the nut of the nuclear family. We have broken, demoralized women who have been fed a story. We have broken, demoralized men who have been fed a story. And there was a great sculpture for Burning Man, and I can't remember the year it was there. I just remember seeing the photographs. And I don't know what it was made out of, but maybe pipe or something on the outside. And it was two adults sitting back to back,
Oh
hunkered,
yeah.
angry.
I seen that. I
Remember
seen that
that? And
image.
the two
Yeah.
little golden children, the babies on the inside reaching out to each other, trying to connect, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Pound. We've all been in that situation. Well, what's going on is they're both hurt, they're both triggered, they're both throwing their finger up at each other, basically saying they're the problem. But deep down inside of us, there's a little tiny hurt person who's just reaching out for, and I've taught you this, you know this, and I'm sure you probably use this, we all know this,
Yeah.
reaching out to be seen, heard, or
Right.
loved.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well,
Oh,
if men don't go, if that boy, as he grows, either doesn't have a positive male role model, doesn't have a church or neighborhood or a boxing club or some place to get positive, strong, masculine, gentleman training.
Gentlemen. Mm-hmm.
And the woman growing up, the little girl, all she hears about are bad men, and maybe her father was there, maybe he wasn't. But now she's got a narrative and she's created a story in her mind that men are this and men are that, or men are the problem. It's never her, of course, it's always the man. Then, and she doesn't have a place to go where the aunties and the grandmothers and women who have good relationship with men can correct all that and help her see that no, 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 honey, that's not exactly the truth. Well, then ideally, at some point in time, if we have the resources and somebody tells us, ideally, now we have to go out somewhere. Those women need to go to classes. They need to go to Alison Armstrong, so to speak, and learn, oh, wait a minute. We've all been fed a story that's
Mm,
not exactly true.
mm,
And the men can join this brotherhood, a brotherhood of some kind, to realize, wait a minute, you're not the problem. In fact, you being away is the problem. You need to be here, engaged, enrolled, like killing it here. That's what's going to actually make the change.
yeah.
Then hopefully, then with that healing out here, the women healing over here and the men healing over here, we can now finally turn and face each other and go, yeah, you're right. We've
Mm,
been screwed.
mm,
Yeah, we've both done things to hurt each other, not
mm,
on purpose. Well, there are sociopaths and psychopaths out there, and those people do hurt people. But
yeah.
let's just pull the 2%, 2.5% to 3% of the population out for the moment. The average person, if we can get that to that place where we can turn and look at each other and go, look, I'm sorry. I did stuff, but I was ignorant. I didn't know better. Nobody taught me. I'm learning, I'm figuring it out. And now I'm willing to take responsibility.
Mm,
Now we get to the responsibility, the accountability, the integrity, and being 100% clear on the connection between my intentions and my impact.
mm,
My intentions were to love and get love, but my impact was sloppy and all over the place because I didn't know how to do it right. And so I was doing this and I was doing that and I was doing this,
right.
all on my compensatory complexes to get my needs met. But it was unconscious and I didn't know better. And sweetheart, you were doing the same thing. And it's not your fault, just nobody told you. Like nobody
Right.
tells us what the stuff we're doing doesn't work. And eventually, ideally, in our late 30s, 40s, 50s, we figure that out and we turn back and we go, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. The strategies that I learned from 0 to 7 to 12 in my family of origin,
Mm-hmm.
not so effective out in the real world.
Mm,
To get my needs met here, it ain't
mm-hmm.
working out here. And by my second or third or fourth divorce,
Mm.
clearly it ain't them.
There's something going on here.
So that long, hard look in the mirror that we all have to take as adults, at least in the Western world, to go, look, man, damn it. We were sold some stories. We believed them, and not all of them were true.
Yeah.
And we made up stories about ourselves and our loved ones. Most of them weren't true.
Mm,
And so now we got to take that long, hard look in the mirror and go, okay, it's me. Is is what I'm doing working? Probably not. So who's the only person on the planet that can change what I'm doing? Me.
yeah.
What do I need to do to take responsibility and change right here, right now, honoring, accepting what happened, but with an eye toward, okay, knowing all of this, what steps do I need to take in the next 5 minutes, hour, tomorrow, next week to clean my world up, to help my partner clean their world up, to make amends in our family to the best we can,
Yeah.
and create a cohesive family unit to the best we can, because not
Mm,
everybody wants to do that.
right.
and then spread that from our immediate family and call and figure out what needs to be done with those aunties and those uncles who are out there on the periphery and
Right.
call grandma and call grandpa if they're still around and like pull your family back together.
Mm.
Be the one, be that glue, be the one, smother yourself in honey so that everybody comes in and wants some of that beautiful nectar
Yeah.
and be the light in your family. Like
Mm.
you can do that. Each one of us can do that. You can be the light in your family that lights that candle in the darkness because you're not the only one going through this. They're going
Right.
through a version of it too. But you could be a light and say, you know what? Yeah, story, story, story. We all get it. Got it. What are we going to do as a family? All right. Well, then, you know what we're going to do as a family? This coming Sunday, we're having a picnic at the park.
Mm.
Everybody's coming.
Yeah.
We're going to love on each other.
Yeah.
Okay. And
Yeah.
we're not going to let old Franco have beer because we know what happens with Franco when he drinks a little bit too much. Uncle Frankie,
Oh yeah.
he gets one beer, he doesn't get seven. We're going to
Yeah.
police him on that, and we're going to do our best we can to bring the family together.
Mm.
That's your first job, the best you can.
Yeah.
Because if you can start to heal the bridges you can in your family, all of those people are connected to two and three and four outside of that. So that little mandala of love spreads out very quickly.
Mm.
If you can do that there, then you can do that where you work, and you can do that at the supermarket, and you can do that for your kids' baseball team or
Yeah.
soccer. You can do that in like what you're doing. Hey, I'm going to start a podcast. I'm going to do my best to help fathers and sons and families navigate this crazy world we're in. And how can I help them come together? Like
Right.
you do that. You can be the light. Maya Angelou said this over and over again. She had a beautiful saying that came from an old song: be a rainbow in the clouds.
Mhm.
You
Mhm.
can be a rainbow in the clouds. I can be a rainbow in the clouds. There's clouds. If you choose to look, there's clouds everywhere.
Yeah.
But he's like that old Linus, that old Charlie Brown cartoon. I
Yeah.
think Linus that was always walking around had a cloud over his head and there was little bugs falling around everywhere. He was always surrounded in clouds. Well, we all know people like that.
Mm.
But if we can like stand with our spine straight, that's what Jordan Peterson talks about. Straighten your spine, stick your chest out, lift your chin, and be a light.
Be a light in somebody else.
You know,
Yeah.
I've been listening to these, re-listening to the second or third time now. Stephen Fry, he's an amazing actor and writer, and he's just an extraordinary human out of the UK. And he did a series of three books on Greek mythology, on the heroes and the myths and the legends of Greek mythology. And these are human stories that go back thousands and thousands of years.
Yeah.
And we all want, it doesn't matter what culture you're in,
Hmm.
every culture wants and needs heroes. Every culture. Where we get confused is we think the heroes are out there or some in some unattainable place. But we can be those. I mean, I saw you guys do that, what, at that convergence in Los Angeles. And when
Mm.
the athletic team came out with all the masks on,
With all the luchador mask.
oh my God.
Yeah. 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 That was
And
awesome.
those men in that moment, you guys took on the life of heroes.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
extraordinary. It was so beautiful. You
Yeah. That was
embodied it.
awesome.
You put on the mask and said, "We're doing this,"
Yeah.
and
I'm the
you.
luchador.
It
Yeah.
was amazing.
Yeah. Thank you, Uncle. I think what you're mentioning is so true. It's about rewriting our story, and some of the stories that we have been fed, about what men are or what men need to be. Like you mentioned, our men are the problem, and we don't need men. Our stories that we need to rewrite, and you always talk about that, like what is the story that you are telling yourself? Is like, is that story really serving you? Then if it's not, then why the fuck do you still have the story?
Why are you
let's
doing?
let's let's move forward. Let's move on. and create a new story. Create a new story. You can create your own story. You can rewrite your own story, right? And that's what I'm doing that, now, and rewriting my own story, telling myself the story that I want to hear, not what other
Right.
people have been telling me of who I am.
Mhm.
And I think that's number one. Like when it comes to, men, like you said, taking that responsibility, that accountability, and being in integrity of who they are. And you mentioned a lot of people just in this podcast of like books and podcasts, and Alice Armstrong, and who started this movement. And I see you as a person that looks up to these people, right? That are teaching you, and you're teaching other people. You're teaching other men, other young men, some of the things that you've learned over years, and things like that. I see you as a leader, but also a teacher.
Mhm.
And I think that is very important that we pass on this knowledge so that other men can do other things with their lives, and their families. So I want to talk a little bit about the importance of mentorship,
Mhm.
that men, how can mentorship help men rewrite their story, right? And then I would love to go into the offering that you have with your own mentor,
Mhm.
that you're gonna have in your
Okay.
in,
Yeah.
in your in your property in May, that I'm gonna be blessed to be there, and learn from you, learn from your own mentor. But let's dive into what is the importance of mentorship in men, and how can that help men and women too? Is your master class going to be open to men and women?
Yes. Yes. It's
Okay,
definitely open. Yeah.
okay, perfect, perfect. So let's talk about the importance of mentorship when it comes to men, and then we'll talk a little bit more about that
Sure.
master class that you're going to be having.
Well, one of the great things about being born a human being is where some of us come into this world with clear designs on who we are, what we want to be. Clearly, we have some extraordinary talent that comes through. We see those people.
Hmm.
And even those people need teachers and trainers as they evolve to understand what to do with the tool that they've been given.
What they do? Okay.
Most of us, however, or most of us, we kind of have to learn as we go along. My father had many extraordinary faults, but he had an extraordinary now that I've been able to look at it and look at it in a different way, he had extraordinary gifts. And one of the great gifts he gave me was the ability to teach. And I learned by how he taught me.
Mm,
He showed me how to do everything, how to work on a car, how to fix plumbing, how to work on electrical, how to do carpentry, how to work with cattle, there wasn't a damn thing that involved your hands or your mind that he didn't have some knowledge on and that I was expected to learn and
mm,
figure out. Boys need competent, responsible, strict, masculine role models. They have to have that to grow up properly. And we get certain amounts from our fathers, whether they're there or not. And then ideally, we find in teachers or other men or women who show up in our lives who are willing to tutor us, who are willing to mentor us. I mean, you could go back in time in the trades when you wanted to be a cobbler or a smith or um, work in a printing press shop as the industrial age was coming on. You took on an apprenticeship. You became a
hmm.
mentee and
Yeah,
you worked for somebody through a journeyman process.
yeah.
And you spent 5 to 7 to 8 to 10 years learning the trade because you
Mhm.
don't know anything. And what's more importantly, you don't know what you don't know.
That's right. Yeah,
The person who's further down the path knows what you don't know.
yeah.
And they know you don't know it, even though you think you do.
Mm,
So That's part of the challenge with educating men is we can be quite arrogant. We can
Yeah.
think because we can assimilate things quickly, we think we're way further along the path than we are.
Yeah.
Blessing and a curse.
Yeah.
Um, so I've had extraordinary men show up in my life who cared for me and who cared about what I was doing and what I was thinking and how I was showing up and wanted to help me.
Mm.
Now, of course, that's reciprocal, which means I have to listen and I got to show up and I got to do what they say,
Yeah.
which of course men hate. Sometimes some men love taking orders when we're clear, we've got a direction. Hey, we've got to get from here to there. We're going to do it as a team and we're going to get over that mountainside. Great.
Right.
One person needs to give an order and do it. But most men rebel, kind of that initial don't tell me what to do type of thing.
Mm.
A good teacher and a good mentor also, a good mentor challenges you, but he also encourages you and he entices you to dig deeper and to go further into your ignorance.
Yeah.
Dive further into the myths and the stories that you've been telling yourself.
Mm.
Is it really true?
Mm-hmm.
From the Byron Katie school of work, is that true? We tell ourselves all these stories. We need to question ourselves. Is it really true?
Right.
And so, masters, teachers help us do that. Like they help us question our beliefs and question our stories and question what we think, what we feel, what we believe. And sometimes that's smooth and easy, often not so much because we all have cherished wounds. We all have cherished stories. We all have biases
Mm-hmm.
because, we get educated when we're young and we're moldable and we're easily influenced. And when we hear a compassionate person telling us something, we take it on as if that's the truth.
Mm.
And maybe it is, and maybe it's not. And,
Right.
or maybe it's only like most things, maybe it's a little complicated. Maybe that's true, and some other things are true as well.
Mm-hmm.
So a good mentor shows up, and I believe pops up in different parts of our lives. Different people have shown up for me at different parts and provided me with some support, with challenge, with like, hey, here's how this thing works. Oh, okay, thank you. Thank you. I didn't know. So
Mm.
we should always be looking for those who have done the thing that we want to do.
Yeah.
There's very few things in this world that we as humans want to do that haven't been done before, which means somebody's further down the pathway. They've made all the mistakes. They may have some information for you, and you might want to be a little curious about what they know, so you don't
Mm.
have to make those same mistakes, or at least maybe you'll make some different ones. Um, so mentorship is very, very powerful for men and for women. We
Yeah.
all need good teachers in our lives. In the old days, that would have been our aunts, our older brothers and sisters, and our aunts, and our cousins, and our uncles. Um, that would have been our grandmothers and grandfathers who would have been around nurturing us and helping us and telling us about things that our parents didn't and didn't even have time to,
Right.
right? So I believe wholeheartedly, and there are amazing mentorship programs all around the world that if you're a single mother, you have a son, there's mentors, there's big boys, there's big brothers of America, there is what's the organization that spawned out of the Mount Kind Boys to Men.
Voice to
There are
man. Yeah.
many, many organizations out there to give sound, solid, masculine mentorship to these young men. And I still have mentors in my life. I'm 60 years old.
Yeah.
People who I look up to and I follow and I learn from
Yes. Yes. So,
because I know there is no end to the depth of my ignorance.
right. Yeah.
So just
Mm.
because I've been on the planet a little longer, well, yeah, I know some things, but I don't know everything.
Yeah.
And there's more that I don't know than I will ever know.
Yeah.
So And I'm a curious person. I love reading books. I love, it's not just one-to-one mentoring. I've talked about Maya Angelou. Um, I love Winston Churchill and JFK and Martin Luther King and Gandhi. And there are heroic people that have lived on this planet who, thank God, left writings behind and left
Mm-hmm.
videos behind and left books behind that we can learn from that I consider absolutely my mentor.
Mm.
Maya Angelou would talk about before she would go out and do a class or teach a class or do a speaking engagement. She would be backstage and she would say, come with me." And she would recall all of those people and all those teachers that she'd been
Mm.
and that had long since passed and say, come walk with me. I need you now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
she never felt like she ever walked out on stage alone. She was surrounded by all of those great people.
Mm.
And it's a practice that while I can't see them, I can call them in.
Yeah.
And I can call those spirit inside of me to step into something greater and to be more. And those mentors and those helpers help reflect to us the more that lives within us. Carl
Mm.
Jung said, we all live in shoes too small for ourselves. And he was talking about we have untold greatness inside of us. But our stories, our pain and our suffering, and the stories and what we made all that mean keeps us small, keeps us contracted, keeps us circling in our own pathologies that we can't lift our head up above the fray and go, wait a minute, I can go to school. I can write the book. I can help that person down the street. I
Yeah.
can do these things. I can start a podcast. I can
Mm-hmm.
show up for others.
Mm-hmm.
We're stuck in our own myopic pain and suffering. We'll never stretch out and do the others.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's part of why I believe mentorship is good and strong for all of us to reflect back to us, bro, sister, brother, you are made of so much more.
Mm.
Step up, step into it. You can do it.
Yeah, that's really inspiring, Uncle. Thank you for sharing that, and that's something that I really appreciate that about you too. That you're always learning, right? You're always wanting to grow and experience new things because you don't know what you don't know, right?
What I don't know.
And I had the opportunity to be in your property a couple years back with the
Years ago.
first Jedi training, and now you're having another training with your mentor, right? This is a psychosomatic and shadow work training masterclass weekend, and it's open to men and women.
Yes.
Tell me more about this. Who is this training for? What are things that
Hmm.
we can expect? Who should come into this training? What are they, going to experience in this weekend? Anything
Thank you.
that you would like to share about
Sure.
that?
Thank you. Well, on the very second men's weekend I went to staff, I'd done my initiation weekend and for about a year, I just went to I groups, if you will, and I did my own work. And eventually I stuck my head up and I decided, well, I'm going to go staff weekends and I'm going to go see what that's like.
Mm-hmm.
My second weekend, I was in this container surrounded by men. I was insecure. I didn't know anybody. And there was an open seat next to this guy. And he waved me over and I sat next to him. And I was really insecure. I didn't know what the hell was really going on. And
Right.
turns out he was the leader of the weekend. And his name is Martin Lassaw. And the way I describe it is basically he took his beautiful wing and he just stretched his feathered wing out and around me and he wrapped it around me.
Mm.
And that's what it felt like. I didn't know it at the time, but that's what happened. He saw something in me and felt something in me, my desire, my enthusiastic heat for this, discovering what all this stuff was. He took
Mm-hmm.
me in. Well, through him and many, many others, I learned about this work, this somatic work that we do that helps us release these stories, these beliefs, there's an old saying, the issues are in the tissues to help us stuff out.
Mm,
All kinds of techniques that people have been using for a long time. And I started learning those.
mm,
And I heard of this thing called shadow work, and I went and I studied that.
mm,
And I've studied all kinds of different things to help people move through, and for lack of a better term, restory at the end of all of it. And sometimes it can look loud and screaming and violent to get this stuff moving through. But on the other side, basically to look at this whole thing from a different lens. But we got to go through it. Another person told me once, there's no way out but through.
mm.
Got to go through it. There's no circumventing it.
Right.
And so I still follow. Martin has become over the years a good friend, and I still go to his trainings. In fact, I just was at one a couple of weeks ago in Texas. And he loves my home out here, and he loves my teepee. He likes to sleep in the teepee. So he May 5th, excuse me, 15th through the 18th, to teach a class, and he and I are going to teach that together on how to facilitate this type of work. And it involves shadow work, it involves somatic and trauma informed training. Trauma informed, I'm a little sketchy on that because that's a new term we've come up with in the last 5, 7 years,
Right.
um, to give people more jobs. All this
That's it.
always has been trauma informed, and it is about that.
Right.
Um, involves Gestalt, it involves family constellation work, it involves family systems, it involves internal family systems, and involves old voice dialogue work. There's all different kinds of tools, if you will, that are going to be brought to bear that allows us basically to go from one way of being to another. If I've got this pain and suffering, if I've got these shadows, these unowned parts of myself
Mm,
who are coming online, and even when I don't want them to, making me behave and do things and make choices that are beyond my control, well, I got some healing work to do. And if you're involved in men's work, and if you're involved in women's work, and if you're involved in helping children heal, the tools and the skills that we are going to be doing over this Friday, Saturday, and half a Sunday, are skills and tools you need in your toolbox.
yeah.
Whether you're a therapist, whether you're a social worker, whether you're a just somebody who's out there, quote unquote, doing this work, you need to know this stuff. And you might know some of it, but I can tell you from following this man around still to this day, I'm always learning little new things and little new nuances from
Mm-hmm.
him that make me a better, more effective, safer, and I'm not sure I believe in that term to begin with, um, facilitator, trainer, and leader. And so if you're passionate about helping others, even if you're just a yoga instructor, and when I say just a yoga instructor, I don't mean that that's a bad thing. I'm just saying there's skills here that can help you help people move through whatever they're moving through better.
Yeah.
And if you're just somebody who wants to come and have some place to bring your pain and your suffering, and you're tired of it, and you're ready to do something different in your life, this is a really good place to come to do that. We're going to be doing real work.
Mm,
That's
mm-hmm.
really, we're going to be doing real things.
Mm,
While it's a learning environment and a training environment, it's each one of our own stories and our pain and suffering that's being brought to bear that we're using as the soup, the fodder for this training.
mm,
So
mm-hmm.
I invite all of you to come. Um, he's 77, maybe 78 now. I don't know how many more trainings he's going to do. And so I know that there have been many men and women that I wished I would have known and or studied with, or at
Mm,
least to be in their presence for just a
right.
little while before they left. There's an old African proverb that says, every time an elder dies, a library burns to the ground.
Wow.
And this man is a library.
Yeah.
He used to be a Sikh. He used to run temples years
Mm,
and years ago. So he's an extraordinary man. He's had an incredible life. And he now travels the world and has for 35, 40 years, um, doing this powerful, powerful work and teaching people how to do it. And
Mm.
not only is he highly skilled, and I know I'm going on and on, I'm not trying to necessarily sell this. What I'm trying to tell you is that not only does he know the stuff, he's an extraordinarily good teacher.
Yeah.
He knows how to um, amalgam and bring different ideas and share them in ways that are easily digestible,
Mm-hmm.
easily understandable. And he's one of the kindest, sweetest souls I've ever met. So I just love being around him. And I learned so
Yeah.
much by being in his presence. So before this library burns to the ground, I invite you all to come check out some books
Yeah.
because he's a gem and he's a true elder and
Mm.
a true leader. And there's much to be learned from him.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Much to be learned from him and from you and from all the people that are going to be there as well. So really excited to have this opportunity to be in your presence, to be, haven't met him, but just the way that you speak about him is like, wow, I just want to be there already. And it's going to be a beautiful ceremony. So yeah, inviting, any person that really works with people is needs to have some of these
Yeah.
tools, right? Needs to have some of these tools in their tool bag so that when they need it, they can bring it to the world.
Can
So
I tell people where to find out and where to register?
yeah, yeah. So let's we're gonna start closing the
Okay.
this podcast. So
Good.
if you can share any last words, and then yeah, where can people like go to find this offering? Anything else that you would like to share about any other offerings that you would
Sure.
like to share?
Well, as I was earlier in our conversation, as I was throwing social media under the bus, it does have its positive things. So
Right,
can you
right.
find me on social media? Um, Twice now, my site has been hijacked. So
Oh,
I
interesting.
don't have. First things first is that the training coming up in May uh, is that's going to be at my website, Vince Matoska, MATOSKA.com. Vince Chafin, somebody stole that from me, and I can't get
Mm,
it. So vincematoska.com
okay.
and get the information and register there. That link is also on my Instagram page, which is
Mm,
also Vince Matoska, my Instagram. Um, and of course, you can. I'm sure if you are remotely tech savvy, you can do one very quick Google search, and you can find out how to get in touch with me pretty quickly. I would imagine.
yeah.
So please feel free to reach out, and would love to have you here. I'm capping it at right at around 2022, and so it's going to be a small, intimate group, and at an off-grid, beautiful location in Southern California. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
home in the mountains. Last words. Gosh. Well, let's pray that these aren't my last words, that I get that I get through the rest of the day.
Last words for this podcast. Any last word that you would like to share with any of our audience in terms of what we talked about?
Yeah. For you fathers, you're not the problem.
Mm,
Now, if you're making choices that are destroying yourself and destroying your friends and destroying your family, yeah, you are the problem. But you can make better choices. You
mm,
have it within you. You can be the light. Sisters, mothers, my invitation is do the work necessary. Do your father wound work so that you can reframe how you look at men, because we are not the problem. We are not your enemy. We are here to love on you, to support you. If you have never heard James Brown's song, It's a Man's World, I highly encourage you to listen to it because he talks about all the things man have created and why did he create it? At the tagline of every time he gets to the chorus, but it wouldn't be nothing without a woman or a girl.
mm,
The reason we're
mm,
here is to support and love on each other, to love each other, to support each other. We are two pieces of the same puzzle. We are two fractal slivers of the same divine. We are not separate. We're only separate because we choose to be and we choose to force each other that way. So my prayer is that each one of us forgive ourselves, love on ourselves, find a way to love ourselves. Because if we can bring some forgiveness and love to ourselves, we can turn that around and learn how to forgive and love others. And we can bring that to our family. We can bring that to our cats and our dogs. We can bring that to that annoying neighbor. You can, let's bake a cake tomorrow and like take it to your neighbor and return the garden hose that you borrowed God knows how long ago, or the lawnmower that you accidentally broke. Like fix the lawnmower, buy a new lawnmower, take it back, and like mend those fences. Right?
Yeah,
We
yeah,
can do that. If we do it here in our heart, in our mind, and our soul, we can turn that fractal around, that mirror image around, and we can do it with others.
mm,
We can do
yeah,
it with our loved ones. We can do it with our children. We can do it with our neighbors. And Pete, the annoying guy across the street with the Harley, we can find some way to love on him. And so many people talk about wanting to change the world,
mm,
change your neighborhood, change how you work, talk to, interact with the people in your neighborhood.
mm,
Across the street, your next door neighbors first.
yeah,
Let that circle, that spiral, start to get wider and move its way up.
yeah,
And we can, each one of us, you, Ephraim, me, my beloved, all of us, we can be truly the light of the world. We can make a difference every day wherever we go if we choose to. So my ask is that we choose. We choose to be a light.
yeah.
Thank you, brother.
Beautiful, beautiful. Choose light and love.
Yes,
Yeah, yeah, that's my constant work, in choosing that light and love, um and it starts with me choosing that light and love for myself, and then outward to my family and to my community. Thank you so much, Uncle. I appreciate your time. All the show notes, all the links will be in our show notes, and thank you so much for this beautiful podcast. And I'll see you in May in your home to be there in the ceremony. Thank you so much.
great. Thank you, Ephraim. Take care, brother.
You too.